So today I saw a cat. I really wanted to squeeze it. It was so unbearably cute. And I was reminded of something that I read, that the Tagalog language actually has a word for this concept when you want to squeeze something because it's so unbearably cute. And that word is gigil or gigil. It exists in Tagalog for that concept. It got me thinking about all the other words that don't exist in English, but they exist in other languages. For example, Jayus, a joke so bad that it's actually funny. Why do fathers take an extra pair of socks when they go golfing in case they get a hole in one? Did you hear about the two thieves that stole a calendar? They each got 6 months. What does a house wear? A dress? Have you heard of the band 923 Megabytes? Well, probably not, because they haven't even had a gig yet. So there you go, Jayus, a joke so bad that it's actually funny. And yeah, I think that's a really nice concept. We have dad joke, I guess, as a comparative, but we don't actually have a technical term for it. So yeah, Jayus. One kind of nice one is the idea of sobremesa, which means, well, the talking after a meal in Spanish. And I love that. We spent time talking after the meal, you'd say in English, whereas in Spanish you'd say something like, you know, we had an enjoyable sobremesa, or in Spanish you might say something like, me encanta hacer la sobremesa con mi familia, or something like that. I love to talk after dinner with my family. So yeah, sobremesa, it's a nice concept. The idea of those lingering hours after a meal where you talk about the world and put it to rights. One really famous one is Schadenfreude, which in German means, well, the pleasure derived from somebody else's misfortune. You know, like rubbernecking when you see like a car crash or some kind of other tragedy, you might kind of be really tempted to sort of look, even though it's a really terrible sight. So Schadenfreude, the pleasure in other people's misfortune. It's awful, but it's kind of high drama, which isn't usually boring. Germans also have the opposite, Freudenfreude, which is the pleasure derived from somebody else's success or happiness. So like when you see a child having a great time just playing in the mud, actually reminds me of that amazing Idols track. Freudenfreude, joy and joy, cheerleader, happy boy. I think that he wrote that about his son, but I'm not 100% on that. Interestingly, the English language has adopted Schadenfreude to describe that joy in seeing others in distress. So it does exist as a kind of a borrowed word or a loan word in English vocabulary. But the reality of the word in German is it's actually not nearly so popular. It's actually really only reserved in kind of psychology and humorous spheres. Yeah, where the English kind of like to pop it into sentences quite commonly, the Germans actually apparently don't. It's actually a rarer word than we'd have them down for. It's a bit like hygge. That one did the rounds. Hygge is a Danish word that English speakers have kind of adopted to mean that feeling of coziness and conviviality that creates a feeling of contentment and well-being. Like on Christmas Eve, fires burning, the chestnuts are roasting, and the family are all sat around. So yeah, something cozy and lovely. So that's one word that the Danish have that we actually don't in English, that we actually didn't in English. However, the English language has adopted it and we use it everywhere. It's used everywhere. So in interior design, during the Christmas period, it's used too much, and during the autumn period, actually, just anything to describe that coziness that we sink into towards the end of the year. Actually, in Danish, it apparently means something more just like nice. So it's used more commonly in Danish, but it has a much more common meaning, really. One word that I really like, Litost, Czech, excuse the pronunciation, I'm sure I've got it wrong. Litost, which is the sudden painful awareness of your own misery. Yeah, that's a 4 a.m. thing. Franz Kafka, Eat Your Heart Out. Litost is that moment where you're like, wow, is this it? You know, is this me? Darkness. You meet the darkness, you meet yourself in the dark. So here's a nice one. Petrichor is a Greek word. The smell of rain on dry earth. The smell of rain on dry earth. So when it's been raining and just that gorgeous smell that you get, that earthy smell that you get is petrichor. So yeah, you have something in Greek which describes that very smell, which I thought was quite nice. Oh, I had a right turtle there. His name just went clean out of me head. This is Sam. It's Sam. This is Sam. That's a turtle. It's a Scottish word to mean that moment, that couple of moments where you can't quite remember someone's name when you're introducing them. Sorry about that wee turtle. Like, kent his face, but know his name. No, sorry, that's terrible. Apologies to all the Scottish speakers. Apologies to anyone who's Scottish and watching this. One really nice Swedish word is, again, apologies for the pronunciation, Smultronställe. Stella. I'm gonna have a go at that. I'm not actually sure how it's pronounced. This is a secret and personally meaningful place. So as a kid, you might seek solace in a downstairs cupboard under the stairs, and that would be your den. It could be your bedroom. For a while, I'd sort of ritualistically have to cross London Bridge on my way in and out of work because it had some sort of value to me, and which I couldn't really pin down. But yeah, a secret, personally meaningful place. So it's a really nice Swedish word there that we don't have in English. One really nice concept that is defined in the Bantu languages is the idea of humanity being defined through relationships, which I thought was great because I've been giving this actually a lot of thought recently, because it's true. We're born attached to someone. We come into this world very much connected to somebody physically and obviously genetically connected to millions and millions of people. But yeah, I mean, you come into the world physically connected to your mum, and we die alone. But with all of those kind of multiple gene variations that we share with other people, our lives are really about sharing those emotional connections with people. We're reared and we're socialized, and we share experiences with people. I mean, we share experiences with ourselves, and we can probably have a life alone. Humanity defined through relationships. Now, thinking about it, it's not actually that clear if they mean relationships with people, which is what I'm getting at, or if they mean relationships with your personal relationship with food, or personal relationships with work, or your bed. So it would be interesting to kind of dig into that, but I have a strong feeling that they actually mean human relationships, which would definitely make sense. So, and I'll end with a nice romantic one. Mami lapina tapai. Massive apologies again for the pronunciation. This is a Yagan term, which is meant to mean a look shared between two people who both want the same thing but hesitate to act on it. And immediately it kind of comes to mind, a romantic film where two friends meet up and they've been friends for ages, but suddenly they give each other that look, that knowing look that they want to kiss, and then they're both thinking the same thing but neither of them actually want to make the first move. So that's one way it could be used. Various others. So yeah, I mean, I just thought it just reminded me of like a kind of Hollywood moment. That moment where that look shared between two people who both want to do something but are hesitating to act. Or even, a cliffhanger. Shall we jump? Again, that is Mami lapina tapai. So next time you have that look, you can go, hey, I got just the word